Let's do it. Breaking down the regular season, the future, and the playoff picture, the present with coaches getting sacked. ESPN NFL analyst Ben Solak, got to put you on the spot here with this. I just heard it in my ear. We have a firing relieving of Pete Carroll.
Yeah, Pete Carroll. I mean, that one was going to happen, right? I think that was kind of anticipated across the board, so it's not too much of a surprise. Still sad, though.
What do you think they do here? I was thinking about, there's all these rumors about like who could potentially take that spot. Is it Flores? Florio was saying Flores, and Dable is a play caller. And I'm like, what is the scare? Like, what do you need to make like Sean Payton and Andy Reid pee down their leg? What coach do you bring in there?
I was mad that Florio had the Flores thing yesterday because we had a thing come out today for ESPN of like, bold predictions for all the eliminated teams. And my bold prediction was that they'd hire Flores.
Oh, really?
I think of what Mike McDonald has been for the Seahawks in the NFC West division with Kyle Shanahan, with Sean McVay, where it's okay, if we're going to have really good offensive designers here, let's get a really good defensive mind who will give us a punching chance against these teams who aren't used to being stopped, who aren't used to playing these slow, grimy, and gritty games. I also think I want to call Flores a culture guy because of the Patriots background. He was in Miami, and there are obviously culture problems there. But he's also talked a lot about the fact that he feels like he did a really not great job in Miami with some of the culture stuff, and he'd like to do it differently on the second go. And so I still very much lean Flores. I think Flores, if you were to wipe away the fact that he's suing the NFL and everything that's gone down the last few years, he'd be clear in a way far 101 best coaching candidate available among the coordinator ranks. Right now, Kevin Stefanski's available. It's kind of tricky. But Flores, to me, like above Clint Kubiak, above Chris Shula, he'd be the guy. Obviously, he is suing the NFL, so that kind of complicates things.
Yes, and Pete's done?
I would hope so. Not so much because I think that he doesn't have the juice anymore, but obviously in terms of some of the coordinator hirings, his kids are on the staff, and the Chip Kelly thing was a total disaster. He traded for Geno because he knows Geno. Eventually you just reach a hard limit in terms of guys and ways how to approach and tackle the league. And I think while Carroll's shtick could work again if he had a long time to totally fill out a roster with his dudes, that's just not the NFL we live in anymore. And I don't know how much clock he has left in terms of his energy and enthusiasm for it. So I hope it's the end for Pete, just because I like the guy, not because I think it's that much of a disaster.
Is there a coach that's playing in the playoffs? To be these teams, they make it, they should be celebrating. They have their division T-shirts and their hats. Mm-hmm. And there's I'm a little worried that some of these coaches might still be their seat's not quite cooled off. You know what I mean? It's not, the LaFleurs, the McDermotts, the Tomlins. If there was one coach in the playoff field that you have a little nervousness about in that regard, who is it?
It's McDermott, because if the Bills make a AFC playoff field that lacks Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, and then they lose one and done to the Jaguars, which these Jaguars are a very good team, but on the scale of NFL owners being embarrassed, losing to the Jaguars is kind of up there. I could see not that McDermott will be fired on the tarmac, but there's going to be a big sit down. There's going to be a conversation. How did this all go wrong? It's going to be you need to make an offensive coordinator change, or, the general manager this. And things could precipitate and trickle down such that eventually it leads to, that mutual parting of ways, you might call it, or, we need a new start or whatever. Simply because the Bills have been a little bit unfairly set up for very high expectations in this particular AFC playoff field because the other star quarterbacks aren't in it, despite the fact that this Bills team, not outside of Josh, not as good as maybe you'd like for the Bills to be, not as good as we're accustomed to them being. And so I could see an embarrassing one and done loss in Jacksonville leading to some domino effects that gets McDermott out of there. But
that is embarrassing. I've been saying this for the longest with this. Mm-hmm. Now it's very sexy to say Bills better win. I was on it in November. This is your, in a positive way. This is your go for it. And it's, we don't have the defense. That's embarrassing that you don't have the defense, because what are you doing with the best quarterback, the reigning MVP? Right. And you don't it's an embarrassment that you don't have that and you're not ready to go, despite no matter which quarterback is or isn't out there. What do you think? Is Josh just gonna? How can he take advantage of this? In this matchup, how can is it a good matchup for him?
So Josh, I think always in the postseason, Josh feels more willing to wear the Superman cape, right, on 1st and 10, let alone on like 3rd and goal and in the red zone and so on and so forth. You see him run more in the playoffs than he typically does. I don't think that the Jags are a good matchup for them because Jacksonville does a lot of stuff defensively to, play zone coverage and drop guys off line of scrimmage and be creative. And when you face those teams, your hope is to get them into man coverage, to run them into man coverage, which the Bills can do the first half of that. They're a great running team. And then to take advantage of the matchups. And the Bills just don't have matchup winners at receiver, right? Like they are still trying to make, Brandon Cook's shot play guy 2025 work, 2026 work. And that's just like, you don't want to be living in that world in this year. That's desperation. We've seen that with all their wide receiver changes over the course of the season. And so even if you, the game plan is probably to really run it down Jacksonville's throat, take advantage of not the best defensive tackle room, try to control clock and tempo, but then you're still playing a 1-score game against the Jaguars offense that's just unbelievably on fire right now throwing the football. The matchup that interests me the most is if the Bills defense could take the air out of Jacksonville, because Jacksonville is pushing it, throwing more 10 yards down the field, 15 yards down the field than anybody else in football. And that's what the Bills do, is the Bills pack those intermediate zones. They make you check it down and they make you be incremental. And we've seen Lawrence do that. He did that against the Colts 2 weeks ago and it was impressive, but it's not where he's strongest. He's at his best when he gets to rip it. And so that matchup there is what interests me in that game.
If we look at the playoff picture and it's finally like sealed and beautiful and look what an epic finish. I need to get into that. The highlights we just showed, of course, between the Steelers and Ravens in the AFC North. But when you look at this, like where is the brilliant mind of ESPN's Ben Solak going? What sticks out?
I think that the Texans can run the AFC even from the wild card spot. To me, that's the kind of the storm cloud's been gathering on the horizon here for the last several weeks as they've gotten better and better. It's not the strongest AFC field like we've talked about. That Texans defensive unit is a unit that can absolutely win 3 games in a row. They get an easy start, right, with getting the Steelers as the 4 seed. It's obviously not, you don't want to look ahead of the game. The Steelers have legitimate stuff. But in general, like catching that 4 seed in both conferences is a big deal. So the Texans to me are like very viable to run out of the 5 seed in the AFC, which is not something we typically see a wild card team making it all the way through. And then in the NFC, I don't see how we're not just getting NFC West rematches all the way down, right? I think that the Niners are very viable to be the Eagles at the 6th seed, which would set up Niners-Seahawks part 3 in the divisional round. And then the Rams get the Panthers, like I said, in that first game. To me, that's a great draw as that 4 seed. And we could be seeing, all right, Rams in the divisional round, and then the other side of the brackets, 2 more NFC West teams. Like we might be getting 3-match Seahawks-Niners and then 3-match Seahawks-Rams down the stretch of the NFC playoffs, which given how those games have been, would be ideal. That'd be very, very fun.
Well, these Eagles, they rest their starters, right? They end up with the 3 seed. Chicago, they lose, and the 2 seed was within reach, right, for the Eagles. Was it a mistake for them to rest their starters?
No, I mean, to me, this is classic, like, yeah, now that we know that the Bears lost, like, of course, it would be great to have the 2 seed. But in general, like, I think health into the playoffs is more predictive of victory than 2-3 seed split, right? The only way the 2-3 seed split really ends up mattering is if it goes 1-2-3-4, 1-2-3-5 coming in a division round. You have to travel to Chicago instead of playing Chicago at home. Eagles already lost to Chicago at home. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's not enough of a tilt there. Like if we're talking like the Lions, who are a dome team, Jared Goff does not play well in the cold. There, I think the seeding would matter more to me with the Eagles and how they play. I don't care too much about the home and away relative to other teams, and you're able to make sure that you stay healthy. And the Eagles are quite a healthy team entering the postseason here. Still have most of their offensive line together. Lane Johnson's coming back defensively. It's just the Nakobe Dean injury you're worried about. Like this is a quite healthy group. And when we go look historically, what predicts playoff success? It's health. So I don't mind them protecting it. And hey, like they very, very winnable Commanders game that they lost because of bad 4th down execution, because they had 100 yards of penalties from their defensive backs. Like they could have just won that game and they were in it the whole way.
I think fans who watch my show, football fans, want to know what you think about the Eagles, how far they can go.
I think they lose to the 49ers. I find them a very difficult team to trust. Their only good offensive performances over the last 2 months have come against bad defenses. And I think it's fair to say the 49ers are a bad defense by the advanced metrics, but the 49ers are also good at like getting off the field on 3rd down, executing in the red zone. And the Eagles have been a great 3rd and 4th down team and a great red zone team. So it's going to kind of come down to high leverage plays on that side of the ball. Defensively, you really like what the Eagles have done and the improvement from a lot of players from their defensive line. The young secondary is great, but they're gettable. They've been gettable because they don't have great edge rush presence and they don't have a great corner too. And you're going against Kyle Shanahan, which is just like Kyle never walks into a game plan where you have 2 or 3 weak spots and doesn't find a way to get after them. So it's hard to imagine the Niners having as quiet of an offensive performance as they did against the Seahawks, against these Eagles. And then it becomes down to, okay, like late game, 4th quarter, 1-score game, which passing offense do you trust? Like which team do you trust to execute? Like the Eagles have just not won my faith in that regard over the course of the season. So it's a 3.5 point line against the 49ers. And I think the 49ers are the right side of that. Eagles, like, how far can they go? They could win like 9 Super Bowls this year. They're a ridiculous team that wins games they should never win and goes the distance on bad performances, and they're hot and they're cold. So like they can always go an incredibly far distance. I just don't have very much faith in them on any given week.
If they put in Tanner McKee, does that change anything for you?
Yeah, they would be worse. Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Tanner McKee. I just love rooting for Tanner McKee. He's very funny. I like the way he plays. He's a good QB too. Tanner McKee's a solid QB too. I've never said bench Hurts for him. That's never come out of my mouth once.
I know, but people really think you have like it out for Jalen.
Well, I tweet a lot about Tanner McKee, so I think that's honestly is a fair assumption. I'm below market on Jalen Hurts, certainly for like an NFL analyst and for a guy who's an Eagles fan and grew up an Eagles fan. And then I think Tanner McKee is quite good. I don't think objectively McKee is better than Jalen Hurts, but people will precipitate and believe what they like to believe, and that's fine. They can go for that.
When I'm watching this game last night, Steelers Ravens, I am like very demonstrative. I'm like, but I just want what are when you take in that kind of a game, are you this guy right here?
Oh man, absolutely not. I mean, like
What are you
the
like?
tricky thing is like usually like when every single play is happening, I'm just hitting up the ESPN research guys, being like 5 minutes out about this, 5 minutes out about that. I love those guys and they're great. Shout out Mike, shout out John, shout out all these dudes who take all my messages at 11 p.m. So usually I'm just like fiending for cool stats and just like ways to contextualize how exciting this is. But then I mean like my pops is a Steelers fan, right? And so I'm texting him.
That's
I'm texting
awesome.
him, my brother's home with him going ballistic. And my dad's just there, sending texts with like, capital letters and periods, right? Just like no reaction whatsoever. It's like very, very calm. Cause that's how old people text. And so, like, I mean, I don't know, like if you can't enjoy that game, if you're not getting up out of your seat at Zay Flowers, breaking through tackles 50 yards down the field, you don't like pro football, man. I mean, that was electric.
What was your dad saying? What's his take on the Steelers? Is he in?
Well, I mean, he's been trying to fire Mike Tomlin for 9 years, as I feel like all Steelers fans have. And so he's obviously thrilled and peacock walking this morning. And like, of course, the Steelers won the division. And then the moment they lose, he'll be back on Tomlin's job. And that's just how it's gone for the last 6 years. Is how it'll go for another 6 years.
How come you didn't name Tomlin as someone who should be worried? You think that's just like he wins even if they lose in horrifying fashion, which they might with this pass rush with the Texans?
Because I don't think we've learned anything new about Tomlin since the last time we did this, right? Like the Steelers went 10-7 again. They did it with below average quarterback play again. They won games that they shouldn't have won because of key turnovers and late game execution, and definitely a whole lot of fairy dust and luck again. Like we always do the Tomlin conversation. And I'd certainly 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, what are we talking about? We should never get rid of the guy. And then the last 1 or 2 years, I've been like, okay, I would kind of understand it because there hasn't been an upward trajectory from what we've seen the last 5 or 6 years, but there's been no downward trajectory. He continues to do exactly what he promises he will do, which is every Steelers game, he drags the opponent down into the muck. They play a 17-13 rock fight. And even in these moments where all of a sudden the scoring explodes, they have the ability to keep pace in those because Rodgers is a little bit better. The passing game is a little bit better. And so, it's so hard for me to manufacture more Tomlin concern because we're on the same treadmill every single year. And until something changes dramatically one way or the other, I won't expect anything different from the Steelers.
They were so bad last week, Ben, so bad. What changed? What changed for Rodgers without DK? How did they find success without him?
Playing the Ravens secondary sure does help. Kyle Hamilton going down in the middle of the game. Like I said, a lot of fairy dust and luck there for Mike Tomlin. That sure does help. The Ravens.
There was a priest or something there too, I think.
Yeah. Which, the holy water before the game on the field. This is pro stuff now. The Ravens are what we call a pass funnel defense. They're one of the best defenses, snap-to-snap efficiency against the run. They are below average against the pass. So this is the sort of team against whom you want a quarterback who can get up to the line of scrimmage and take you out of a certain call and get you into a different call. Something that Rodgers does, obviously, prolifically, at times to his team's detriment, but in this case, often to his team's strength. They did get Calvin Austin back. You're seeing here on the stutter go. He was out of the hamstring last couple of weeks, and he's a vertical player for them. They have so much in Pat Freiermuth and in Adam Thielen and in MVS, guys who certainly can win these one-on-ones, but you don't want them to be speed players down the field. Austin returning brought that back to them a little bit. The Ravens just got banged up there in the secondary and then could not tackle for a lick, right? And I thought Chris Collinsworth, Mike Tirico, who both of them, Tirico especially, called an unbelievable game. Great job rising to the moment. But Collinsworth did a very nice job, I thought, identifying just how much meat was left on the bone from the Ravens tackling perspective. If you can't get the Steelers consistently into 3rd and 8s and get the pass rush on Rodgers, they're just going to increment their way down the field on you, because Rodgers will always dump it off. He will always be fast at the check down. He will always take 4 or 5 yards. And eventually Gainwell breaks one on you, Warren breaks one on you, and 5 becomes 15. And so Ravens, man, I like Harbaugh. I like Eric DaCosta. They need personnel help in a big way.
They need personnel help. They have some of the best players in the National Football League. You just mentioned Kyle Hamilton, Lamar, Derek. What do you mean?
Well, so you have your tentpole pieces, right? You have your cornerstones: Lamar, Kyle Hamilton, Tyler Linderbaum, Ronnie Stanley. We build around these guys. Everything else for them has been draft and develop, right? They have not signed a big free agent contract, save for Derrick Henry. The last big free agent contract they signed was in like 2016. Like, they do not spend big money on outside guys. That's fine. That's a very, professional and long-term way of building. I understand that. But when it's internal extension on Rashad Bateman, internal extension onto Mark Andrews, internal extension onto John Jenkins, when it is Chidobe Awuzie is a second corner along with Jair Alexander, when it is Teddy Buchanan and Trenton Simpson draft and develop guys at linebacker, when it is Odafe Owe into David Ojabo, into Adisa Isaac, all at the edge rusher, into Mike Green, all at the edge rusher position. You can't draft this good. You cannot only keep your guys. It's the Chris Ballard issue in Indianapolis, where all you do is draft and develop and extend your own dudes. At some point, you catch 2 or 3 bad years, even if you're a good GM, and you just don't have enough talent, right? The Ravens have such good blue chip players. You said they have the stars. They absolutely do. When you get to the 2nd and 3rd tier of players, like Zay Flowers had a tremendous game last night. Is Zay one of the 20 best receivers in football? Like, are we positive he's better than like T. Higgins, Devontae Smith? No, exactly. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. Tremendous catch from Isaiah Likely. Are we sure either one of these players right now at this stage in their careers is like top 10, top 15 tight end? I'm wholly unconvinced. And so you lose a lot in the margins when you're the stars and scrubs and all we're going to do is extend our guys mentality. So I didn't even bring up the offensive line. Both guard spots are drafted and developed.
This is what brings up this Lamar issue, right? Or the dilemma, because you can't afford to bring anybody in.
Well, in terms of big money contracts?
Yeah.
Bupkis, absolutely not. No. There are so many teams that have signed so many big quarterback contracts, and they are still able to go and spend money in free agency. Absolutely, you have to be able to win in the 2nd tier and in the 3rd tier, or you do the Eagles thing and you kick all the cans down the road. You spend an unbelievable amount of money, which I understand not every ownership group can do, and not every ownership group wants to do. But we're talking about guard, right? Like, we're talking about Kevin Zeitler signing for 1 year, $9 million for the Tennessee Titans. Like, if you cannot solve the right guard spot, and remember, they had Patrick McCarry in the building. They had Ben Powers in the building, right? They have had John Simpson. They had dudes there who have gone on to sign, 2nd tier to 3rd tier level contracts. Simpson in the Jets and Powers with the Broncos at other spots. And they said, we can draft and develop. It's like, man, like, even if you get 85% of the guy that just left the building, that accumulates over all these positions. You have a linebacker 2 problem. You have an edge rusher problem. You have a guard problem. And just there are too many holes in your roster such that once Lamar hurts his leg, like, the season is lost. You got to be more serious about that 2nd, 3rd tier of the roster. You really do.
He's owed $75 million against the cap next year.
Still a bargain. 2-time MVP.
So, I don't. Maybe I'll have to look at my math. I thought that was the issue. I thought that was the whole article from the Baltimore Sun. I thought it was that he's due 75. They have to fully kick the can or move him.
So that is a.
I'm probably wrong.
Like, that's not. That is. I'll put it this way. I don't think that's a wrong read at all. They absolutely have to kick the can. It'll allow them to create 2026 cap space to fill the existing things on the roster. The point is that kicking the can, while it sounds like a pejorative, it's like we shouldn't be doing this as bad team building. Every team that is seriously contending with a veteran quarterback is kicking the can. It's the cost of doing business. The alternative, because we always do this. We're like, no quarterback has ever accounted for more than 15% of the team's cap and won a Super Bowl. That was true, I think, before Jalen Hurts won last year. But regardless, there was that 20-year stretch where it was all cheap quarterbacks winning Super Bowls. It's like, man, you shouldn't pay a quarterback. Dude, the alternative is just like the Colts, right? You have a good roster, you filled it out with guys, you just run a quarterback cycle, and even if you get lucky with Daniel Jones for 8 weeks, it can fall apart at the drop of a hat. The alternative is the Jets, who's quarterback. The alternative is the Cardinals, quarterback. Like, it is true to say kicking the can down with the money has risks and brings you danger, and you have to be able to win in the bottom margins of the roster. It's all totally true. But the opposite universe sucks. Everybody who's in the opposite universe who doesn't have a quarterback hates being there. So you gotta stay in the first one and try to win on the margins.
I just learned a million things. You're so smart. Thank you for sharing. Like, I had not thought of it that way. I don't really even have a response.
Yeah, it
I
is.
don't know
It
what
is
they should.
75 million cap hit for Lamar Jackson. It is an $80 million cap hit for Dak Prescott. It is going to be like
Yeah.
84 for Patrick Mahomes in a couple years. They are all bargains because they're franchise quarterbacks. That's just the nature of the league.
I hate the idea that it's like just they have other, but you're saying the middle and secondary. I very much hear what you're saying. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at this playoff field while we're talking, and it's like Broncos should just easily go to the Super Bowl, right? Like, and then they look like what they looked like yesterday, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, do you have like total faith in them that they can do it in the AFC? Like, are you in on them in a crazy way? Because like the Chargers are blitzing him pretty well. Do we believe in Bo? Where are you with the Broncos?
Yeah, I've always held my doubts about Bo, so it's hard for me to get fully on the train. So I somebody asked me in a column in like week 9. They were like, "Are you ready to take the Broncos seriously as AFC contenders?" I just wrote like, "No." Like I didn't even like explain it, and Broncos fans got really mad at me. And now here we are. They're the 1 seed in the AFC. I'm not discounting them as AFC contenders. Like the defense has elevated their caliber of play, and then Bo has had better play over the back half of the season than he had in the first half of the season for sure, which is exactly what he did last year, right? He came into the playoffs playing stronger. That Chargers game was worrisome, but also like it's week 18. You never know how up for these games these teams are, so you don't want to index too much on that. I will say that just Denver against the Jaguars, you saw the difference in the potency of those passing games, right? It's just quarterbacks like Lawrence, guys who have more arm talent, who are more aggressive, who are more accurate throwing downfield, just give you more in terms of your ability to play your way out of holes. I know the Broncos have won these comeback games, but to put a little bit more stress on defenses. The lack of J.K. Dobbins worries me on offense too. The running game still has not been the same thing since he got injured in terms of down-to-down consistency. So if you gave me like Broncos versus the field, I'm definitely taking field in the AFC. But the Broncos defense, like I said, of the Texans defense, good enough to win 3 games, get you to the dance. Broncos only got to win 2, and that defense is absolutely good enough to win 2. So yes, seriously, as an AFC contender, I like the NFC 1 seed and the Seahawks more strongly in their position as the bye than I do Denver.
NFC, who's like a sneaky team. I think you said Texans could literally take it in the AFC. I like that. You just saw the odds right there for those of you who are interested in that kind of thing. Who's a team? I mean, are you going to go in on my Bears? Who do you like?
The Bears are the 2 seed. Does that constitute sneaky?
I think so, kind of. In the year that we didn't expect them to be there, no, probably not. Let's see the NFC if we could, please, control room.
Yeah. The worst seed
I
that I believe
the Texans,
in.
Are the Texans sneaky? I guess, yeah. You give me your Texans of the NFC.
Yeah, so the worst seed that I believe in is the Niners as the 6th seed, right? The Packers, once Parsons got hurt, I was like, all right, I'm not doing this. Like, I don't have a lot of faith in that defense. And then the 5 seed Rams, certainly a little bit higher seed, but everybody takes the Rams quite seriously. The Rams are getting Quentin Lake back at nickel. Sean McVay just said this, I think about an hour ago. Devontae Adams and Quentin Lake expected to return. Their on-off splits defensively since Lake got hurt are crazy. Like Lake is a very, very, very important part of that defense. His return, Tyler Higbee's back now. Like this team, Kevin Dotson's coming back. Hopefully, like this is getting more healthy here as a team overall. Rams, I think, are going to look a lot more like they looked, October, November than they looked over the course of December. But Niners and Rams, like, the 3 best teams in the NFC, I think, emphatically, were the 3 NFC West teams. And so if you're giving me those 2 wildcard ones as sneaky options, I would take those 2.
Love that. Where can we see your work this week? What are you cooking over there at ESPN?
I mean, we did the whole defense thing. I got on Wednesday, we're having this playoff is defined by the NFL defenses. So we're kind of breaking down Texas, Broncos, Seahawks, what they do the same, what they do differently, and why they're all capable of making the run. Defense wins championships this year and this year only, apparently.
Tell your dad, go Steelers.
Go Steelers.
Gotta believe in magic. All right, Ben Solak of ESPN, we thank you so much for all of the insights. We'll talk to you soon. Love that story.
Thank you, Kay.